Raed Jarrar is an Arab-American political advocate and blogger. He is joining us now live from Cleveland to discuss Iraq and the ever-changing situation there. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about the fight in Iraq. The U.S. Defense Department saying they recently carried out 13 strikes in Iraq, coordinated with Iraqi government forces near Baghdad. They destroyed weapons caches there. Other attacks occurring near Mosul. That as Iraqi forces gradually make their way towards Mosul. Give me your sense of how the battle is going there in Iraq.
The illusion that this is a military battle is very deceiving because many indicators on the ground suggest that this is much larger than a battle that would be won by more airstrikes or more attacks. There is a lot of political and economic and cultural and even religious issues that have to be tackled first, or at least parallel to whatever efforts are happening now. So the fact that the U.S. is interfering to bomb more targets in Iraq is not significant at all. Keep in mind that the U.S. has been bombing Iraq since 1991. It has been 25 years of bombardment, and the last 13 years has witnessed intensified U.S. military intervention, but none of these bombs have made Iraq more stable or more moderate. It's actually the contrary. Iraq has become more extreme and destabilized because of the U.S. bombs.
France, after suffering these recent attacks, now seems more committed to counter ISIL efforts, including plans to deploy the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier to provide support. Given what you just told me, is that going to make much of a difference? And what about this parallel approach that you were talking about? Do you see any signs at all that that is being recognized as the real issue?
There are no signs that the U.S. government or the Iraqi government are taking serious steps to address the root causes of the conflict. One report that I always cite is a Congressional Research Service report. This is an independent entity in Washington, D.C., a government entity that reports to Congress. They came up with a report last year that showed that 93% of the U.S. spending in Iraq and Afghanistan went through military efforts, and only 3% went through the State Department. And even that 3% that went through the Department of State also was tainted with Blackwater spending and security spending. So the amount of money and investment in diplomatic efforts is really minimal, and there is no real attention given to address the real causes. Let me give you an example. Iraqis at large have been saying for the last decade that the sectarian system in the country, the ethno-sectarian system, has led to these divisions. The fact that the government now is built on sectarian and ethnic divisions has led to more ethnic and sectarian militias, including ISIS, including Shiite militias, including Kurdish militias. So many people in Iraq see ISIS as a symptom to an actual problem going on with the political scene. But here in the US, unfortunately, we see it as a monster that can be defeated by dropping more bombs on it. And I don't think dropping more bombs would make Iraq any safe or more stable.
Raed, we've got about 30 seconds, but I have to ask you, since you're in Cleveland, we will hear from the Republican nominee for president tomorrow. This weekend, he was interviewed by 60 Minutes where he said he would declare war on ISIL, but when the reporter pressed him on what that means, he didn't really have an answer. How does the narrative shift if there is a Trump presidency?
The narrative will shift slightly. I think there will be even more Islamophobia narrative, even more anti-Muslim narrative, and even more militarized narrative. But this doesn't mean that the current narrative is not like that, and it doesn't mean that the Clinton narrative will be much different. So I think it's all variations of more or less the same policy regarding Iraq.
Raed Jarrar is joining us from Cleveland. Thanks so much.
Thank you.